Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dharati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamstram Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Paritana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Nitamstram Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sate Devi Paramami Pari Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Trubhyascha Krupa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo 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 Vishnu Paraya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavari Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, everyone. So, welcome to our continued study of chapter 10. So, we'll be discussing chapter 10, verses 19 through the end of this chapter today. So, last week we concluded with Arjuna asking Krishna to explain his opulences. Primarily, his opulences manifested within the material world. And this is for the benefit of the materialist. Devotees are very kind, and Arjuna knew that the materialists are going to suffer the results of so much sinful activities and material attachments and will never find real happiness. And so he wants to give them and all of us a chance to experience the same bliss that he is experiencing in Krishna consciousness. Of course, he has established his firm faith in devotional service, having understood these opulences and established Krishna in the prior verses in his rightful position as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But for the benefit of all of us, so that we may come to also appreciate Krishna for being the Supreme Lord, he is asking to hear about his opulences. So we're going to get just the tip of the iceberg today, and Krishna is going to tell us this in so many words. Now we're going to hear in these verses things like, Krishna says, I am Indra, I am ocean. We have to understand what that means. It means that the greatness that they represent, or that item represents, is Krishna. So whatever the greatness they have, it is representing the Supreme Lord. It is a representation of Krishna's opulences. Right? So Krishna is basically the essence of that greatness. And Prabhupada says in the purport to the 25th verse that whatever is sublime in the world is a representation of Krishna. Again, I'll quote, whatever is sublime in the worlds is a representation of Krishna. So this gets us to understand the totality. Right? So let us begin with the 19th verse, and kind of sets the stage for Krishna's explanation. He says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, I will tell you of my splendorous manifestations, but only of those which are prominent, O Arjuna, for my opulence is limitless. So Krishna can only speak of his principal opulences. Why? because they are limitless, unlimited. Ananta Shesh, with thousands of mouths, have been speaking the glories and opulences of Krishna since time immemorial, and yet is not even scratched the surface. So, Krishna here will only speak again about the principal opulences and give just a summary. Right? They are unlimited. And so this leaves us to wonder, will we never fully know Krishna? If so, then why bother? If you can't know the total of something, sometimes we wonder, is it worth even trying? Well, the devotee doesn't try to fully understand Krishna. They understand clearly that the limited can never know fully the unlimited. So they simply relish whatever it is that they come to know. Whatever we learn, the devotee enjoys and relishes. And based on what they know of Krishna, they're able to surrender and love, knowing that there's even so much more to appreciate about Krishna. And maybe in some time in the future, I'll come to know more and more. But a devotee doesn't try to fully understand Krishna because they know limited can never know the unlimited. Simply simply just enjoy and relish the very sweetness of whatever they come to know of Krishna, knowing it to be only a representation of the total. So this is the mood Prabhupada guides in the purport of how to approach understanding Krishna's unlimited opulences. And so they don't wonder, what about this or what about that or if or how. They just accept whatever is there with great love, understanding the supreme position of Krishna. Because if one begins to try to understand Krishna fully, they'll never come to the point of surrender because they'll never completely understand Krishna. So again, whatever they come to know, understand, accept, and enjoy and relish the sweet position. Because again, at the end of the day, the requirement for us to engage in pure devotional service is to have faith in these opulences. Not to know them all, but just to have faith. So whenever something spectacular we hear about Krishna, just as the cobbler had no doubt that Krishna was fishing the elephant through the eye of a needle. He had no doubt, because whatever Krishna does is spectacular. Similarly, the devotee carries that full faith in his opulences and just engages in wonderful, loving, pure devotional service. Okay? So this principal opulences, it's like an advertisement. They give you a glimpse of a product, and it creates some attraction for it. Right? So we're going to get a glimpse of Krishna's opulences, have some realization, and build our wonderful attraction. Right? Now, these specific opulences, the materialist will say, seeing is believing. I only believe what I see. But because our senses are so limited, we can never use them to really understand Krishna. But to give even the materialist a chance to begin to understand Krishna, he's going to speak about the opulences that can be seen in the great manifestations of this world. So to give them a chance to understand it. For the exalted devotees, these opulences, they're not needed. They don't necessarily care about the separated vibhuti opulences. This vibhuti opulence means by how he controls the whole manifestation. But because everything to that about Krishna is pleasurable, they also enjoy hearing and relishing these opulences as well. Because anything related to Krishna is pleasurable, but their primary focus is the opulences of Krishna as Bhagavan, as a person. How he is so beautiful, how he is so charming and sweet and loving and powerful. Those things and his different pastimes, his Leela opulences, really attract the devotees. But these opulences manifest in the material world are also opulent and are also relishable because everything is wonderful to Krishna. Right? So a couple other introduction comments before we get into these verses. So, the conclusion we should come to when we, traverse this material world Because when we see something great in this world, we should not think it is great. We should think, wow, Krishna is great, because this is a representation of Krishna's greatness. So everything we see around the world that is so spectacular, we should connect it immediately to the greatness of Supreme Lord, because it is His, that greatness we observe is a representation of the Supreme Lord. Right? So in the 7th chapter, Krishna gave us the commentary that He is everything, right? That we can see how He is, everything is either His apara or para shakti, how He is the essence of everything, and how He is the controller. So we understood these 3 points from chapter 7. And by having that understanding, we can see Him everywhere. Right? We can see Him everywhere. Now, in this section, we're going to be able to understand the greatness of Krishna everywhere. So one was to see Him everywhere, as in the essence of everything. And now we're going to see, again, these greatness that are coming throughout the different areas of the world. Okay? So let's now proceed. He says, Krishna says in the 20th verse, I am the super soul, O Arjuna, seated in the hearts of all living entities. I am the beginning, the middle, and the end of all beings. So a very important point here is that Krishna is the cause of everything. The beginning, middle, and end. And Prabhupada speaks about how Krishna's plenary portion as Paramatma enters into the Mahatattva, or the sum of all the material elements, and enables the creation. The point here is that matter does not lead to creation of life. Life is not a combination of different chemicals. No, the whole of all of the different material elements are lying dormant, idle, until Krishna Himself enters into that via His plenary expansion, and thus begins to bring to life all that we see around us. So matter is inanimate, but it is when Lord Vishnu, through His Paramatma presence, enters into every atom, the material world begins to show life. So His presence is fully pervasive, everywhere, beginning, middle, and in the end. And Prabhupada speaks to us in the purport about the Purusha avatars, the Karandakshaya Vishnu, from whom all the universes are emanating from His body. And He is glancing upon the Mahatattva, and thus impregnating all the living entities into the spiritual material world, and thus things are coming to life. Then we have Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, who enters into each universe. And then Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, whose expansion, whose reflective expansion, then enters into all of these different atoms. So the point is that Krishna is the beginning, middle, and end. Everything. He is the complete, right? So that is the understanding that we should conclude from this verse, in understanding the pervasiveness of Krishna's opulences, right? He also opens that verse by saying, I'm seated in the hearts of all living entities. Again, a very important point we'll see spoken again later in the 15th chapter. But Krishna is sitting in our hearts as super soul. He is the witness to all of our activities. He sees all that we do. He is a source of inspiration for executing all of our desires, both good desires and bad desires. And principally for the aspiring devotee, He is sitting in our heart, witnessing our desires to be able to render pure devotional service and make progress in coming back to Him. So, in knowing we need faith in these mystic opulences, we should express our desire that Krishna, please give me the faith to understand and have full, firm conviction in these mystic opulences, so that I may take to the pure devotional service. And being seated in our heart as super soul, Krishna will certainly reciprocate according to His supreme plan. And thus we'll be able to come home, back home to Godhead. Okay? Now we'll get into some of the, the splendors that Krishna will speak. And for the next 20 or so verses, we'll be seeing different representations. And we won't discuss each and every one, but we'll pick a few here and there and discuss. So Krishna says, of the Adityas, I am Vishnu. Of lights, I am the radiant sun. Of the Maruts, I am Marich. Among the stars, I am the moon. Now, when he says of the lights, I'm the radiant sun, is there anything more luminous than the sun? This is the most brilliant of objects we see in the material world. And that light, that supreme source of light, that represents Krishna. The moon is the most prominent of all stars. And thus that represents also Krishna. The moon is so soothing and cooling and also gives life and taste to all of the fruits and vegetables. Again, we'll see this in chapter 15. And so we get to one point here Prabhupada makes that, the stars in the skies, they are not suns, other suns according to our Vedic literatures. They are moons reflecting the sunlight. There's only one sun. Now, of course, modern science today has a different hypothesis. But again, that is a hypothesis. It is a guess as to what those other stars are. But our Shastra explains very clearly. And we know science is always changing its mind. Previously they said that the brain was an organ to cool the blood. And now after some more technology, we understand the brain is much more than that. It is the central system. So many things science is constantly reinventing, redetermining its conclusions. But the statements from Shastra have been proven true since the beginning of time. So according to our Shastra, there's only one sun in each of the universes. And that sun, that greatness of the sun, is a representation of Krishna. In the 22nd verse, of the Vedas, I am the Samaveda. Of the demigods, I am Indra, the king of heavens. Of the senses, I am the mind. And in living beings, I am the living force, consciousness. So Krishna says here, I am the living force, our consciousness, right? That is represented by spirit soul. And we know Krishna is the source of our soul. We are part and parcel of Krishna. Scientists may try to conclude that the body is just a combination of chemicals, but they'll never, ever be able to create life. Any kind of research, stem cell research and genetic manipulation, it'll never create life, because the living force is Krishna, not any matter. Nothing that the scientists will be able to gather from their own accord. Right? So they'll never be able to create life. Krishna says, of the senses, I am the mind. Why the mind? Because of all the senses, the mind is the most powerful, right? Also the hardest to control. And thus the greatness and the strength of the mind that represents Krishna amongst all the different senses. Okay? O priests, O Arjuna. Oh, sorry, I didn't read 23. Of all the Rudras, I am Lord Shiva. Of the Yakshas, I am Rakshasas. I am the Lord of Wealth, Kuber. Of the Vasus, I am fire, Agni. And of the mountains, I am Meru. And 24. Of priests, O Arjuna, know me to be the chief, Brihaspati. Of generals, I am Kartikeya. Of the bodies of water, I am the ocean. Why ocean? The ocean is so vast, no one can calculate the how many gallons are in an ocean. They can simply try to guess. It is seemingly limitless. Like that, Krishna's opulences are actually limitless. And the ocean is giving us just a sense of the greatness of the Supreme Lord. And as Prabhupada would always say, Dr. Frog cannot understand the vastness of the ocean by its own experience in a well. We, having some experience of Krishna's opulences, will never be able to understand it in totality, but simply relish what it is that we know. 25. Of the great sages, I am Bhrigu. Of vibrations, I am the transcendental Om. Of sacrifices, I am the chanting of the holy names, Japa. Of the immovable things, I am the Himalayas. So again, these great things represent Krishna. Om, the sound vibration of all, the most supreme of all sound vibrations, and that is represented in Krishna. Even the Mahamantra has the sound vibration Om, as Srila Prabhupada explains. So now, the very nicely reported, he says, I am the chanting of the holy names of all the yagyas. So this Japa Yagna, Krishna says, of all the different yagyas, he is this Japa Yagna. Meaning, it is the purest representation of Krishna. The effectiveness and simplicity of Japa Yagna, the greatness of it, represents Krishna. Right? And when we do the chanting of the holy names, when we chant the names, Krishna actually appears on our tongue, dancing on our tongue. And thus, this is, he's saying here, I am the chanting of the holy names. Right? And how is chanting a yajna, right? A sacrifice? Well, we're sacrificing our time to please Krishna. Our japa should be intended as a yajna, as an offering to Krishna. An offering, a recitation of his names in love and sincerity. That is the mood of our japa. If we actually think of our japa as a sacrifice, we'll actually begin to improve the quality of our chanting. Understanding it is an offering to Krishna, not just some mechanical process I am doing, but it is actually an offering to the Supreme Lord. And in any offering, in any yajna, concentration is key. So when we are chanting the holy names of the Lord, concentrating on those names is very, very important. Krishna, when we call out his name, he is coming to dance on our tongue. So we are calling to Krishna. He is appearing to us. But then if our mind is somewhere else, is that very respectful? Nice? If we invite someone to our home, they come to our home, and they are seated in our home, and then we go off and do other things and completely ignore the person we have invited, will that person come back? Will that person feel respected? No. So similarly, when we are chanting, we are calling to the Lord. He is appearing on our tongue. And then if our mind wanders here and there, forgetting Krishna, that is not good. That is why it is one of the offenses of chanting the holy names of the Lord, to be inattentive. So when we are calling out to Krishna in our chanting, we should concentrate the mind, thinking of Krishna, and meditating on him, having appeared on our tongue, dancing in such a beautiful way. So this attentiveness is very important. And some of the principal means to be attentive in chanting, being very regulated in the process. Early morning chanting is also always most powerful. Having a fixed time to chant, trying to complete your rounds as much as possible in a set time of the day, from beginning to end, and chanting out loud and hearing each name of the Lord is very, very powerful. And the chanting process becomes very accessible to us by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. As we know, whatever is difficult becomes very easy if we surrender to Krishna. So if our remembrance and meditation on Krishna during our chanting is difficult, surrender to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because whatever is difficult becomes easy when we surrender to him. Okay? And many, many practical tips for this chanting and doing good japa. One, reciting Shikshashtakam prayers. The 8 prayers composed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are very, very potent because they are a progressive step towards this very, pure chanting of the holy name. So reciting Shikshashtakam prayers, reading the 10 offenses to chanting of the holy names, offering our Guru Pranam prayers to the spiritual master, to Srila Prabhupada, then reciting the Panchatattva mantra, and then beginning to chant japa. It's a very nice way to set the mood within us to then embark on this process of chanting the holy names of the Lord. So having some very purposeful intent in chanting will bring attention to the holy names. Again, attention follows intention. So if I have a good intention, then my mind will follow. So being thoughtful of this japa as a yajna, as a beautiful offering to the Lord, will help improve the quality of our chanting. Of all the trees, I am the banyan tree, and of the sages among the demigods, I am Narada. Of the Gandharvas, I am Chitraratha. And among perfected beings, I am the sage Kapila. 27. Of horses, know me to be Uchaishrava, produced during the churning of the ocean of nectar. Of the lordly elephants, I am Airavata, and among men, I am the monarch. 28. Of weapons, I am the thunderbolt. Among cows, I am Surabhi. Of causes for procreation, I am Kandarpa, the god of love. And of the serpents, I am Vasuki. This Surabhi cow, this cows that are in the spiritual world giving unlimited milk. Very, very wonderful. 29. Of the many hooded Nagas, I am Ananta. And among the aquatics, I am the demigod Varun. Of the departed ancestors, I am Aryama. And among the dispensers of the law, I am Yama, the lord of death. 30. Among the Daita demons, I am the devoted Prahlad. Among the subduers, I am Time. Among beasts, I am the lion. And among birds, I am Garuda. This Time, what is the fiercest, most powerful, subduing force that destroys everything? It is time. What can withstand the force of time? Nothing. Scientists and engineers work very hard to construct, buildings and structures that can withstand time. But as soon as that is built, it begins to deteriorate. And we know Krishna's energy of time is pushing everything through beginning, then to middle and end. So it's destroyed everything. When we see ruins around the world, we should see how powerful Krishna's energy is. It's destroying previously great structures by this all-subduing force that is of time. 31. Of purifiers, I am the wind. Of the wielders of weapon, I am Rama. Of the fishes, I am the shark. And of the flowing rivers, I am the Ganges. The Rama referred to here is Parshuram. Because Krishna is not speaking about incarnations. He's speaking about the Shaktis, the opulence and the potency. And Parshuram is a Shaktivesh avatar. And he was certainly wielding the weapons. 32. Of all creations, I am the beginning and the end, and also the middle. O Arjuna, of all sciences, I am the spiritual science of the self. And among logicians, I am the conclusive truth. So here, again, we see the beginning, middle, end. We see, Vishnu, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, as the creator, maintainer, and destroyer. But Prabhupada guides it that no, they are the secondary creators, secondary destroyers. Right? That Brahma and Shiva, they also come from Krishna. Right? Lord Shiva is an expansion, and Lord Brahma is Jiva Tattva, as a separated expansion. So they are expansions. So Krishna is still the beginning, the middle, and the end. And the other personalities, they are secondary in their role. 33. Of the letters, I am the letter A, and among compound words, I am the dual compound. I am also inexhaustible time, and of creators, I am Brahma. 34. I am all-devouring death. I am the generating principle of all that is yet to be. Among women, I am fame, fortune, fine speech, memory, intelligence, steadfastness, and patience. So these 7 qualities, these are feminine qualities that are very, very attractive. And those qualities are Krishna. So, when one is very, has these qualities, they become very attractive. And that attractive feature is a representation of Krishna. And Prabhupada makes a very nice comment in the purport. I just wanted to read about this patience. It's a beautiful statement. He says, and when one is fully qualified, yet is humble and gentle, and one is able to keep his balance, both in sorrow and in the ecstasy of joy, he has the opulence called patience. It's a beautiful opulence, right? When one is qualified, sometimes it becomes hard to be humble. When one doesn't have any qualifications, it's easy to be humble. But when one is qualified, yet is humble, Prabhupada says, and gentle, not wielding their great qualifications in the face of others, but is very gentle, and is able to keep his balance, his equanimity emotionally, in both sorrow and in the ecstasy of joy. That person has the opulence of patience. I really enjoyed that statement by Srila Prabhupada, and so wanted to share it with everybody. That was the last line of purport from 34, just for reference. 35. Of the hymns in the Samaveda, I am the Brihat Sam. Of the poetry, I am the Gayatri. Of months, I am Margashirsha, November, December. And of the seasons, I am the flower-bearing spring. So this Gayatri mantra, very, very potent. Srila Prabhupada speaks about the potency of this mantra. It is chanted for the purpose of realizing Krishna. One must become very qualified to chant the Gayatri mantra. And it is chanted for the purpose of realizing the Supreme Lord. 36. I am the gambling of the cheats, and of the splendid I am the splendor. I am victory, I am adventure, I am the strength of the strong. Krishna is also the greatest of cheaters. Just as Shishupal, who was just about to marry Rukmini, and Krishna came in and fulfilled her desire expressed in a beautiful letter sent by the Brahmana. And Krishna came and swooped her away and cheated in some way, we can say. But he is the greatest. He is also transcendental and pure. Many of the bogus philosophers, they want to be cheated. They don't want to know the truth. And so Krishna will facilitate one to be cheated also, if they want to be distracted by some bogus philosophy. Also Krishna can enable that. And of course, Krishna is the strength that is strong. How strong he is? Even as a child, he is able to lift a giant mountain, miles and miles tall, miles and miles wide and long, and lift it with the left hand, left fingernail, just at the tip, balancing. And thus he is the strongest of the strong. So we'll continue. Krishna says in 37, of the descendants of Vrishni, I am Vasudeva. Of the Pandavas, I am Arjuna. Of the sages, I am Vyas. And among the great thinkers, I am Ushan. Among all means of suppressing lawlessness, I am punishment. And of those who seek victory, I am morality. Of secret things, I am silence. And of the wise, I am the wisdom. 39. Furthermore, O Arjuna, I am the generating seed of all existences. There is no being, moving or non-moving, that can exist without me. So Krishna has been saying, of this and of that, I am so and so. Well, ultimately now he says, everything, moving and non-moving. That is, they exist only because of me. The greatest mountains, the fiercest snake, the greatest sound, it's all representing him. But actually he is everything, not only just that. So to give us some perspective of what is great, Krishna is speaking in this way. So Krishna is a generating seed of all existences. Nothing moving or non-moving exists without Krishna. Nothing without Krishna. All that we see is Krishna. Any other way we can say it? Right? So what else is there to be known then? That's why we say he is Sarva Karana Karanam, the cause of all causes. That is the conclusion from Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma does not think him to be the creator. He knows Krishna is the cause of all causes. So this is a very important understanding, and Krishna said this repeatedly, right? He just said it a few verses ago in the beginning of the Chatur Shloki verses. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate. I am the source of all material and spiritual planets. Everything emanates from me. We saw in Shri-Upanishad, Isha Visyam idam sarvam, right? It says, I am the source of all animate and inanimate. Everything. Yat kincha jagat yam jagat. So, we saw it in chapter 7, Paran Para Shakti. Both inferior and superior energy. All is Krishna. Right? So, reinforcing this point that nothing exists without the Supreme Lord. So then how we can try to live separate from him? It is simply illusion. Because Krishna is within everything. Nothing exists without him. Almighty conqueror of enemies, there is no end to my divine manifestations. What I have spoken to you is but a mere indication of my infinite opulences. Just a sample here is presented to address Arjuna's inquiry, to pacify his desire. That is it. Just a sampling has been given. And so now we'll see a very clear statement by Krishna to help us understand in this verse and the next verse. Know that all opulent, beautiful, and glorious creations spring but from a spark of my splendor. So this is the clearest comment of Krishna for us to be convinced of Krishna's magnificence. Everything opulent, beautiful, glorious throughout all the creation, both spiritual and material worlds, is just a tiny spark of the total splendor of Krishna. Think just one planet, this planet Earth. You could spend your whole lifetime exploring all the beauties and grandeur of this planet Earth. Whole life you could spend. Yet this is one planet among millions of planets within one universe. And one universe is like one grain of sand on a giant beach. Unlimited universes. And all of that creates only 1/4 of the total creation. So the splendor in this planet amongst one universe, amongst unlimited universe, you add it all up in all of the creation. It amounts to just a tiny spark of Krishna's total splendor. That's startling. Within a fire, when you see a spark, how much heat and light it contains compared to the fire? A tiny amount, insignificant. Even that spark touches you, there's no effect. Just gives us a glimpse at how great Krishna is. The extraordinary opulence and splendor of the Supreme Lord. The conclusion is, Krishna is the object then of our love and attraction. If we take the most beautiful person in the world, we combine that with the richest person of the world, and combine that with the most powerful person, and combine that with the most intelligent and most unattached, selfless person, and the most famous. We put it all together in one. Think about how attractive that person would be. Just someone of beauty carries so much attraction. Someone of fame carries so much attraction. Someone of wealth. But we combine it all into one person. How attracted we would be to that person. It would be the world's most attractive person. Yet all the opulence that person has is just a tiny, 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 insignificant spark compared to Krishna. So then imagine how attractive Krishna must be to us. How intense and deep our attraction to Krishna must be. We simply have to awaken it. Awaken it by the chanting of the holy names. So we have this very perfect statement by Krishna. Whenever you see splendor, whatever you see beautiful, just remember, I possess this and many, many more times. So whatever you're appreciating in the world, appreciate it as a representation of my greatness. And then understand, when you engage in my loving devotional service, you'll experience even more and more amazing features of the Supreme Lord. So everything we see great, it is Krishna. Then Krishna continues this theme. 42, final verse. But what need is there, Arjuna, for all this detailed knowledge? With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire universe. In the end, these details are irrelevant. It only represents a tiny fraction of what I do. Studying in detail these opulences won't reveal much. If you study a few drops of ocean water, you can study it for your whole life, but it's not going to reveal the components of the ocean, all the aquatics, the depth, the different natures of the ocean. You won't understand it. So studying even just these few opulences will not yield any conclusion of Krishna, because it's just a tiny spark, right? With a single fragment, this whole universe is supported. We can think how much it takes to support one family, to support one company, to support one organization, one state, one country. So many resources go into it. Yeah, Krishna is supporting the whole universe. And that is just a single fragment. Krishna is not fully occupied. We might think, wow, he has so much to do. He's entering into every planet, keeping it afloat. He's entering into every atom, making sure things are going around the neutrons at a certain speed. We might think, wow, Krishna's really busy. It doesn't even register to him. It's happening, as he said earlier, completely aloof. That's the extraordinary position of the Supreme Lord. He's all-pervading. Yet, it doesn't consume him. He is simply enjoying in the spiritual world with his devotees. So, but we must remember, Krishna is everywhere. As Super Soul, he's sitting in every living entity, expanding into the entire material energy, right? Expanding into every universe, all by his partial representation. Partial representation. And maintaining everything so perfectly, so systematically, all together. It adds up to just a tiny fragment of Krishna, not even the majority of him. It's amazing. Now we get to see it and understand the amazing potency of the Supreme Lord. And so what is the conclusion? One should engage in pure devotional service. What other thing could occupy one's mind when we understand Krishna to be present everywhere and the source of all of these? The only logical conclusion is to engage fully in pure devotional service. Even the demigods, the greatness of all the demigods, who are wonderfully empowered, great personalities. But again, they represent a tiny spark of the greatness of Krishna. Right? To consider them equal or the same is, now we can understand, it's very offensive. It's severely minimizing the position of the Supreme Lord. Right? We see they're just a tiny fraction of Krishna's potency. Clearly, the Supreme Lord. just wanted to conclude by reading this last statement that Prabhupada makes in the purport of this chapter. It's very beautiful. He says, Srila Baladev Vidibhushan, a great acharya in disciplic succession from Krishna, concludes his commentary on this chapter by saying, Yat Shakti Leshat Suryadya Bhavanti Ati Ugra Tejasaha Yad Amshena Ditam Vishmam Sa Krishna Dashame Rachate. From Lord Krishna's potent energy, even the powerful sun gets its power. And by Krishna's partial expansions, the whole world is maintained. Therefore, Lord Sri Krishna is worshipable. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 10th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of the opulence is the absolute. So this is chapter 10, presented by Srila Prabhupada, getting us the faith and conviction so that we may take to the process of pure devotional service. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki. Any comments or questions?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Thank you for such a wonderful class as always.
Thank you.
I have a very slight question I just wanted to clarify.
Yes.
But in text 30, where it says, amongst the Dayata demons, I'm the devoted Prahlad. So is it saying that because Prahlad came from the lineage of Hiranyakashipu, that this is like a demoniac lineage?
Yes. So remember that, as you rightfully pointed out, Prahlad Maharaj appears in the lineage of the Daityas, and Hiranyakashipu was the chief of Asuras, as Prahlad Maharaj points out. So that was a demoniac lineage, and Prahlad Maharaj appears as the great devotee within this lineage. And so there are many understandings of the point. The point is, no matter where you are born, one can take to the process of pure devotional service. It matters no what your birth is, what your race is, what your gender is. It is all irrelevant. Even Prahlad, born in the great demoniac family, is the great pure devotee, one of the Mahajans. So that is the point I'm making here.
Very nice couple. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
so much. I just thought it was so odd to see, I was kind of like,
Yeah.
I was like shocked when I said demoniac Prahlad. I was like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dana Pranam, all those who share the
Hare Krishna.
very nice class, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for your detailed explanations as always. Just a small observation, or maybe please correct me if I'm wrong. I felt that when we're doing this one, are these the verses, like basically the ones who are impersonalists, are the ones, like, do they focus on these verses more when they're trying to explain and they're trying to, city the Bhagavad Gita's verses and all that, and put forward their philosophy, and try, because here, as Krishna is mentioning that he is all the material manifestations, but we consider him, though he is as a part of that, but we as devotees would like to focus more on the personal aspects of Krishna, right? So, is that where their focus point is? Please correct me.
Yeah, to some degree, but here he's also speaking about many personalities as well, right? Like of the men, I am the monarch. Of the demigods, I am Indra. Of the Rudras, I am Shiva. So he's speaking also about many persons as well. So, the reference of Krishna in some of the material elements like the oceans and the purifying wind and things like that, yeah, it can be understood or maybe used, but Prabhupada doesn't comment at all really in this section about the impersonalist philosophy. And if you notice, Prabhupada, when he speaks about impersonalism in the purports, it's referring to many of the verses that the impersonalists use to support their philosophy. So by that, I would conclude this section is not so prevalently used by the impersonalists to establish their philosophy, because we don't see rebuttals from Srila Prabhupada in this section very much. So I always use that as a gauge to understand, maybe where that philosophy is coming.
Sure, Prabhu, thank you. That clarifies the point. And do we have any homework on this? Because I didn't see any.
No. Yeah.
Homework. We don't.
Yes. Time to catch up.
Yeah.
Memorize verses.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Dada Pranam, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Dhanyavad.
Prabhu, just a follow-up question, comment that Parika made. Could it also be that these opulences, the way they are stated, is for us to be able to relate? Because coming through whatever we have to this point, we have some kind of imagination, visualization of what kind of opulence he might have. But now he's trying to shatter that, and he says that just don't believe that you cannot imagine me. I am much bigger than what you've ever imagined.
Yeah. No, that should be our conclusion. Remember at the beginning of this, Krishna is asking why you need to ask me these questions, because Arjuna has already established the position of Krishna as the supreme person, Param Brahma Param Brahma, right? He is the supreme abode. He understood everything. So, but Arjuna is speaking to establish within the conditioned soul the same conviction he has had. And so when we see this, it gives us a very relatable, when we say Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead enjoying in the spiritual world, and he is doing so many things, sometimes it's difficult for our contaminated mind to relate. But we can relate to the giantness of the ocean, right? Because we've seen it. So now when we see that greatness of the ocean represents Krishna, but as you nicely said, but that still only equates to a tiny fraction of Krishna. Don't think you have understood the greatness of Krishna. You have barely a clue, right? So this gives us relatable features of the Lord that we can touch, see, feel, experience, to give us faith. Again, the pure devotee, they don't need that. They don't need to see the ocean's greatness to then understand Krishna. They know by Shastra, by faith, yes, my Supreme Lord is threading an elephant through the eye of a needle. They have no doubt. No doubt. Full faith. Right? We are trying to come to that position of full faith. And so by being able to relate to the greatness of the things we see around us and to conclusively understand what's the point made in the last two verses, this all amounts to just a tiny fraction of who is Krishna. And that's what makes it so beautiful. Whatever we love and enjoy about Krishna today, we're just scratching the surface. Just scratching the surface. But keep scratching. You'll scratch for time immemorial and still enjoy new and new features of the Lord. Never ending.
In fact, the first visual that you had in today's class it sums up the whole chapter, so to speak.
Yes. Yeah, tip of the iceberg.
Tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Wonderful. Thank you. Any other questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, will you Dhanavad Pranams?
So much question. I didn't worry about these opulences, but but I'm very wondered to hear about how this it's possible, Ratha Yatra is possible. I'm very enthusiastic to hear about that.
That is the wonderful mystic opulences of Lord Jagannath. How it's happening is beyond the understanding of anybody. Actually, it is a miracle of all miracles. But it shows again the strength of Krishna's will, that he is arranging so wonderfully this Rath Yatra festival, because Krishna is so eager to deliver the conditioned soul. And this, we know, Lord Jagannath Rath Yatra is the one festival where Krishna comes out of the temple. When people are not willing to come to see him, we see during this COVID time, people are a little bit hesitant, which maybe is understandably. But Krishna is coming out still to see all the conditioned souls and his wonderful devotees. So it is amazing. We're very excited to relish this mercy of Lord Jagannath. So yes, please participate and enjoy another one of Krishna's amazing opulences. So tonight in Bhakti Vriksha we're going to be discussing some of the amazing opulences and magical power of Lord Jagannath that we have seen just here in Detroit alone, in so many different experiences. So we'll be sharing that today. So thank you. Hare Krishna. Any yes, Mataji?
Prabhuji, I like this part which you mentioned, the beginning part, that this sometimes we are so eager, we want to know this, we want to know this, we want to read this and that scriptures. I mean, that's really good. But this fact that we need to just relish whatever we are know a little about Krishna, and which is completely beyond our imagination and beyond our power to ever, even if we take several lifetimes, we'll never be able to understand and complete. But just knowing a little every day, that just will increase appreciation of him, and just relishing that sweetness every day. I feel I just came to know. I mean, we mentioned that many times, but just kind of reiterating in our mind. Actually, thank you.
Yeah, it's important because sometimes we get frustrated by this want to know and the need to know, and we have to just acknowledge we'll never fully know, and sometimes we get bewildered by how Krishna can do that. Is it really true? Prove it to me, or we speak about some wonderful potencies, where it says this, that tenant, just enjoy it. That was a point Prabhupada makes in this 19th purport. It's worth reading a couple of times, the first paragraph. It sets the mood for the devotee in approaching not only this section, but also in general. That just enjoy whatever we know of Krishna, relish it, and understand we're only scratching the surface, and we'll continue to know more and more in time. Because otherwise, if one tries to exhaust this information, they'll never get to enjoy it. It's like someone having a giant palatial home. I'm just trying to come up with a crude example, and you're trying to go and explore all the different areas of it instead of just enjoying each room at a time. Just enjoy it while you have it, and go on like that. Whatever we know of Krishna, relish it. Tomorrow we'll learn something new, and tomorrow we'll learn something new after that. And keep hearing, keep reading. So, thank you for bringing that point back up. That's how we started. That's important. Any
Prabhuji, that one which you mentioned, this one we can read more, like we can tell me.
The first paragraph in the purport to verse number 19.
Okay.
right in the middle there, Srila Prabhupada talks about the mood of the devotee approaching the unlimited opulences. Understanding, see, Prabhupada is so perfect. He understands that we'll have the potential to become frustrated by not being able to fully contextualize Krishna. So he makes some very nice statements there to give us comfort that just relish it. Whatever you know, relish it. Don't worry about what you don't know. It's comforting. At least it was for me. Sounds like for you as well. Hare Krishna. Any other questions or comments? Okay. So if not, then next week we'll begin discussing chapter 11, another very spectacular chapter of the universal form. And so we'll cover the different aspects of the universal form and what is our key understanding to conclude this. And we'll know that the conclusion of this chapter is that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is where we'll conclude from studying this chapter 11. So thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki. Hare Krishna.